Usually, when something is able to appeal to a wide audience, it's not exactly hard to pinpoint why it might be so popular, but I'm kind of at a loss with Bunny Girl Senpai. It's not about the Playboy fan service you get on the cover, and it's not about the waifus. It's about the problems teenagers face, all explained through quantum mechanics and related thought experiments. Maybe the appeal is to appear intellectual and have a token deep show to latch onto. I don't know. I'm seriously confused. I hear it constantly compared to the Monogatari series due to its character-focused story arc structure and character chemistry, specifically between the lead male and lead female characters, Sakuta and Mai. And as a fan of the Monogatari series, I can understand and see the comparison. But I believe this is the least of Bunny Girl's worries, because even as a standalone story, it can fall apart without bringing Monogatari into the conversation. Let's take a look at the first story arc of the series, adapted from the first novel, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, which introduces the main female lead, Mai Sakurajima, and the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment. Essentially, Mai phases out of existence for the people that forget her existence, seemingly after they fall asleep. She's forgotten in waves, first the random background characters, then the supporting cast, followed by the lead character. This erasure from existence seems to expand onto objects she touches, as shown to us with her grabbing the carrot in the supermarket, leading us to believe that any object she touches is also erased from people's memories temporarily, until she stops holding it. Especially when she mentions that while Sakuta had forgotten her, she had kissed him. Does this only apply to non-sentient objects? The carrot was affected, but humans aren't? To me, it seems somewhat inconsistent there, and that's specifically showcased when she holds onto Sakuta in the same supermarket scene. Others are also very aware of Sakuta's actions when he gasps as Mai grabs onto him, but is never questioned when talking to what would appear to be himself. I get it's done as to not interrupt the flow of dialogue, but he's never questioned even once as to why he might be talking to himself. Just that one smirk in the supermarket. There's no background whispers, no direct questions, none of that. Mai's existence is the parallel to Schrodinger's cat in this arc. Until you open the box, you're unsure if the cat inside is alive or dead, so the only way you can find your answer is by opening the box. I immediately think to how Umineko no Nakukoro ni handled the existence of witches in its story, where battler Ushiro Miya denied the existence of them. An active battle of the minds where one denies the existence of witches to prove humans committed murder, despite being face to face with a witch who is trying to prove the existence of her own kind. Although that anime adaptation severely lacked and complicated very simple elements, I still believe it makes more sense than most of Bunny Girl's attempts at this. There is no activity in the existence of Mai. Unlike the existence of witches in Umineko, everything is unconscious, which opens up this problem. Compare Mai to the cat. It is either alive or dead, confirmed only when observed, and thus exists unobserved in a superposition. More on that in the link in the description below. Mai is either existent or non-existent, confirmed only when acknowledged, and will soon disappear from everyone's memory. Those who believe in her know she exists, and those who don't believe in her have no idea who she even is. She acted in movies, starred in commercials, she was a model, but are those figments of Sakuta's imagination, or did they actually happen? She's acknowledged at first and begins to be forgotten, akin to a child believing in the tooth fairy. After the belief stops, they no longer receive the money underneath their pillow at night. I believe the scope of Schrodinger's Mai is beyond what the series itself can handle. As we see people forget her after falling asleep, her existence comes to be confirmed off a vague memory of Sakuta's. He was able to pull it together after depriving himself of sleep. Sure, science might tell us that information learned before sleeping is more easily processed. but it also tells us that sleep deprivation hurts our memories. So to establish existence from a vague recollection from a study session, because he saw it on the test, is a bit of a weak way to begin the conclusion of the first arc, especially for a series trying to appear as smart as it is. Fortunately, that was the better part of the show, as the second arc, adapted from the second novel, Rascal Does Not Dream of Little Devil Kohai, gets even more convoluted for almost no reason at all. I'm willing to sit back on the first arc as just being a mess. Maybe I don't understand enough about quantum mechanics to get it, though realistically I doubt the general viewer base of this show does either. But the second arc should have been the nail in the coffin for many people. Throw out Schrodinger's cat, and I introduce to you Laplace's demon. If someone knows the location and momentum of every atom in the universe, they can predict the past and future location and momentum of those atoms. We meet this arc's focal character, Koga Tomoe, and the concept of quantum entanglement is thrown into the mix. Koga is perceived to be the possible demon in this experiment by one of the side characters, Futaba, which at this moment exists only as a mouth for the exposition of each thought experiment. A problem which I assume will be fixed once her novel is adapted by this show. For this arc, Sakuta is thrown into a time loop on June 27th, and must find out the trigger of the loop. By falling down with Koga into a lewd position as a forgettable side character from the sports ball team walks in to ask her out, he receives a loosely definitive no as an answer, ending the loop. Supposedly, we're meant to believe that Koga never giving the guy a direct answer caused the loop, and by Sakuta interfering it ended the loop. But for a demon, who by Futaba's own words, can predict the future instantaneously, she would have seen this coming and could have prevented it. Alright, let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say she looked even further beyond and saw this would lead to her and Sakuta's eventual fake relationship, in which Sakuta experiences a second time loop, this time the reason being Koga never wants to end their relationship. What a spiteful bitch. But the demon would be able to prepare for these problems, and Koga walks directly into it, like Sakuta would want her to. The loop ends for the second time and we're clued into what actually happened, proving Futaba's prior hypothesis of the situation true. The time loop was a prediction of the future, so when Sakuta experiences the days for their real iteration, he has already experienced them. In general, Laplace's demon feels much more integrated into its arc than Schrodinger's cat did, though there's still a large plethora of questions which break the thought experiment entirely. The conclusion of the Laplace's demon experiment explains how Sakuta became involved via quantum entanglement, caused by, as I've seen some Redditors put it, consensual butt-kicking between Sakuta and Koga. It's hard to separate this story from quantum mechanics. They're a crucial ingredient to the story, so just to say ignore it would mean to ignore the key story at hand, and I'd be alright with that if the characters were worth anything. Sakuta is a cynical mouthpiece of dry humor, except his dialogue is rarely, if ever, worth a chuckle. Occasionally he'll make a snide remark, usually regarding sex, but I just don't find his dialogue very interesting. Instead, it feels like it was produced to be as witty as possible, without being witty at all.
テストで100点が取れたらご褒美をあげるから。
それって何でもしてくれるってやつ？
何でもって言っても本当に何でもしてあげるわけじゃないからね。
じゃあ一緒にお風呂入るって我慢する。
アウトよそれ。
Maya's kind of in the same boat, though I find her harsh attitudes slightly more engaging than Sakuta's. She and the other girls suffer from the series' focal entity, which is adolescence syndrome, making them essentially all girls with issues that need solving. This is where the Monogatari comparisons begin to really surface, and I've previously mentioned that both the story structure and character chemistry of Sakuta and Mai also factor into this. And since I'm through tearing Bunny Girl apart, compared to a few other entities, I do want to address Monogatari before we're done here. While the two series do share many similar concepts, I think there's a defining difference between the two. The difference being that Monogatari's overarching message is extremely simple. Beginning in Nisei Monogatari, we're introduced to the concept of fakes, which follow us all the way until the end of Owari Monogatari's second season, with the question of focus being, can a fake be more real than the real thing? That alone is the thought experiment, a question that can be largely applied across various spectrums of situations, essentially leading to similar thought experiments presented in Bunny Girl without directly referencing or trying to explain and terribly implement them. Now, whether it's due to the original writer or anime production team, Bunny Girl seems to be missing something. It seems to want to separate itself as much as possible from your average seasonal harem show filled with everyone's favorite waifus, but it's lacking in many areas as a result of trying so hard to be different. Maybe if it were just your average harem show, it would be more appealing. Or maybe if it tried less to explain what was happening, it might work better, as it would have more time to make its characters more appealing. Tear away its weak science, and essentially all that's left of Bunny Girl is a series with less engaging characters than your traditional harem romp, and a story about some metaphor for teenagers being overly dramatic. I want to thank those that have pledged to me on Patreon, especially Justin Chipman.